Welcome to Broken Bonds. Subscribe for stories where dignity finds its voice. My sister took our mother's ring before the funeral flowers had even wilted. She slipped it onto her right hand, turned the stone toward the inside of her palm, and closed her fingers over it whenever anyone looked too closely. "Mom wanted me to have it," Susan said. I believed her. She had lived near our mother for the final year. She had driven her to appointments, picked up prescriptions, and learned which soup she would eat when nothing else tasted right. I lived 2 hours away and had spent that same year caring for my husband after his second surgery. So when Susan took the ring, I said nothing. Then I found the old repair card in our mother's jewelry box and took it to the man who had made the ring decades earlier. He looked at the band, then at me. "Your mother asked me to engrave this for you," he said. "For me." He turned the ring over and read the words Susan had been hiding inside her hand. L.H. Keep the song. My initials. My mother's phrase. A sentence connected to the year I gave up the future I wanted so my little sister could have hers. When I showed Susan the engraving, she did not deny that it was there. She only said, "You never told anyone you did that." And that was the part that hurt most. She was right. I had kept my sacrifice so quiet that, by the time I needed it remembered, everyone had forgotten it, including me. My name is Lydia Harper. I was 69 when my mother died, and my sister decided that the person who had been nearest at the end deserved every story that came before it. Our mother Evelyn had small hands and a talent for making ordinary things feel deliberate. She could hem a dress without a pattern, turn leftover vegetables into a meal, and make you feel that a cup of tea was an answer rather than a drink. She was also emotionally indirect. If she loved you, she repaired your coat. If she missed you, she sent a container of cookies. If she was proud, she said, "You look less tired today." You learned to listen for the meaning underneath. Susan was 7 years younger than I was. When we were children, she followed me everywhere. She sat outside the bathroom door while I practiced singing. She borrowed my blue sweater without asking. She believed that if I knew the words to a song, I could solve almost anything. I encouraged that belief because I wanted to be the older sister she could trust. When Susan was 16, she needed emergency surgery after her appendix ruptured. Our father was working nights, and our mother was trying to manage 2 jobs while staying at the hospital. That same summer, I had been offered a place in a music program 3 states away. It was the first serious opportunity one had received. The program would have covered most of my room and tuition. I needed only enough money for the travel and the first month's expenses. I had saved for a year. Then Susan became ill. I told the program director I could not attend. I did not announce that I was giving anything up. I simply stayed home, worked at a grocery store, and slept in the hospital chair when our mother needed to go home for a few hours. Susan recovered. My singing changed after that. I continued with the church choir and later became a choir director at an elementary school. But I never applied to another program. When people asked why, I said the timing had not been right. That was true but incomplete. Susan never knew the full story. Our mother knew. My father knew. The program director knew because I had written him a letter. I believed keeping quiet made the choice cleaner. It did not. It only meant that other people were free to decide what the choice had been worth. The ring belonged to our mother's mother. It was a modest gold signet ring with a small blue stone that had lost some of its color over the years. Our mother wore it on her left hand until the joints in her fingers became too stiff. Then she moved it to a chain around her neck. She wore it everywhere. To the pharmacy, to church, to the supermarket, and once to the emergency room when she insisted she was only there to keep Susan company. I had seen the ring all my life, but I never thought of it as something I might own. Susan did. At least she spoke as if she had. After our mother died, the family gathered in her living room to divide the personal belongings. There were no grand antiques. There was a sewing machine, a box of handwritten recipes, a collection of scarves, and the jewelry box she had kept in the bedroom drawer. Susan opened the box. She picked up the ring. "Mom wanted me to have this," she said. I looked at the blue stone. "Did she tell you that?" "Not in those exact words." "What words did she use?" Susan turned the ring between her fingers. She said it should stay with the daughter who had been there. The sentence landed heavily. I had been there that morning. I had driven through rain for 2 hours to reach the hospital. I had held our mother's hand while Susan called the funeral home. I had been there. But Susan meant the year before. The year she had lived close enough to take our mother groceries. The year I had been traveling back and forth while trying to keep my own home from collapsing under medical bills and appointments. You were the one she saw every day, Susan said. It was not an accusation exactly. It was a measurement. I looked at the ring again. Then keep it. Susan studied my face. You're not going to argue? No. Mom would have wanted me to have it. I heard you. She slipped it onto her right hand and turned the stone inward. I noticed the movement but did not understand it yet. That evening, I went home with a recipe box and one of our mother's blue scarves. Susan kept the ring. I told myself it was fair. I also told myself it did not matter. Those two sentences often arrive together when a person is trying not to admit she has been hurt. 3 weeks after the funeral, Susan invited me to her house for coffee. She was wearing the ring. It sat loose on her finger. The blue stone faced her palm, and the engraved side of the band was hidden beneath it. You're wearing it every day? I asked. Mom wore it every day. That is not what I asked. Susan put her hand beneath the table. I thought you weren't upset. I am not asking for it. You sound like you are. I am asking whether you know what is engraved inside. She looked at the ring. There's nothing important. How do you know? Mom told me. What did she tell you? That it was old. Our mother had never described anything as merely old. She said old things had survived several versions of the truth. I watched Susan close her fingers around the ring. You are holding the ring, I said. I am asking you to stop hiding what it says. Her face hardened. You said I could keep it. I did. Then why are you interrogating me? I am not. You always do this. You make a simple thing complicated because you want everyone to notice what you sacrificed. The sentence hurt because it touched a truth I had not wanted to see. I had sacrificed quietly, but I had also expected quiet sacrifices to be understood without explanation. That was not fair to Susan. It was not fair to me either. I am not asking you to thank me for anything, I said. Good. I am asking you not to decide that the ring story is unimportant before you know it. Susan stood. I have to work in the morning. You always say that when you want to end a conversation. And you always keep talking when you want to win one. She walked me to the door. The ring remained turned inward. The following Saturday, I cleaned out the last drawer in our mother's bedroom. Beneath a stack of old receipts, I found a rectangular card with a faded blue border. Bell & Sons Jewelers. The date was 1989. The item was described as a gold signet ring with a blue stone. The order included 1 line of engraving. The rest of the ink had faded, but I could read the first 2 initials. L. I sat on the floor with the card in my hand. 1989 was the year after Susan's surgery. It was also the year I had been accepted into a local school music program, and decided not to go because I was already working full-time. I had forgotten the date, or perhaps I had placed it somewhere in my mind where dates could not accuse me of choosing one life over another. I called Bell & Sons. The shop was still open. The sign in the window had changed, but the name remained. A man answered. Bell & Sons. Are you Mr. Bell? I am. My mother purchased a ring from you in 1989. What was her name? Evelyn Harper. He was quiet. Blue stone. Yes. Gold band. Yes. Engraving inside? Yes. What does it say? I have the order card. You have the card? I found it in her things. He asked me to bring it to the shop. I drove there the next morning. Mr. Bell was 78 and had worked behind the same counter since he was 17. He examined the card through a magnifying glass, then opened an old ledger. Your mother came in with a newspaper clipping, he said. What kind of clipping? A music program. Something about a scholarship. My hands went cold. What did she say? She said her oldest daughter had given up an opportunity to stay home with the younger one. She wanted the ring engraved as a reminder. I looked at the order. Why did she give it to her? She did not say. She only said the girl who kept singing needed to remember that the song had not ended. I stared at him. That is what she said? Yes. He turned the ledger toward me. The original entry was in his father's handwriting. L.H. Keep the song. Mr. Bell looked at my face. Did you know? No. Your mother came back 2 weeks later to ask whether the engraving could be made smaller. She wanted it hidden on the inside so people would not treat the ring like a public announcement. I laughed once, but there was no humor in it. That sounds like her. She said the ring was not payment. I looked up. What did she mean? She said her daughter had made a choice out of love, and love should not become an invoice. The sentence was so close to my own belief that it frightened me. I had kept silent because I did not want my sacrifice to become an invoice. But my mother had understood the difference between asking for payment and asking not to be erased. Mr. Bell brought out a small jeweler's loupe. Do you want to see the engraving again? Yes. He held a sample ring under the light to show me how the inside was read. You may not be able to see it while she is wearing it, he said. It faces the palm. That was why Susan kept turning the ring inward. I had assumed she was protecting it. Perhaps she was protecting herself from the words. When I returned home, I found an old photograph inside the music program folder. I was 17, standing outside the hospital in a borrowed coat. Susan was beside me, pale and smiling weakly. Our mother stood behind us with one hand on each daughter's shoulder. On her right hand was the ring. The blue stone faced the camera. Behind the photograph, Mother had written a sentence in pencil. For the girl who kept singing. I sat at the kitchen table until the light changed. The ring was not a reward for being the better daughter. It was not proof that my mother loved me more than Susan. It was a message meant for one person who had spent years pretending she did not need to receive it. I had imagined recognition as something other people gave you after you explained yourself well enough. But my mother had tried to give it to me in a form I had not known how to read. The problem was not only that Susan had taken the ring. The problem was that I had handed over the story without saying it belonged to me too. Susan came to my house that evening. She did not call first. She stood on the porch holding the ring in her closed hand. I went to Bell & Sons, I said. Her expression changed. How do you know? Mr. Bell remembered Mom. She looked toward the street. What did he tell you? That she ordered the engraving. Susan's eyes moved to the ring. What else? That it was for me. She sat down on the porch step. I knew there was an engraving. You knew. Mom told me once. She was wearing it on the chain. Why didn't you say anything? I thought it said something about the ring itself. It says my initials. I know. The answer was so quiet I almost missed it. You knew what it said? Susan looked at me. I saw it after she died. I turned the ring over. I read it. The porch seemed to lose its warmth. Then why did you say Mom intended it for you? Because she did. Did she tell you? Not exactly. You said that before. Susan opened her hand. The ring lay in her palm, the blue stone catching the evening light. Mom told me the ring had a story. She said it belonged with the daughter who understood what it cost. What did you think that meant? You. I stared at her. She said you gave something up for me, Susan continued. I knew about the summer, but I did not know about the scholarship. I thought she meant you gave up a few weeks of work. I never told you. No, why not? Because you always said it was nothing. The truth landed between us. I had taught Susan to call my sacrifice nothing, then resented her for believing me. She looked at the ring. But I was the one with Mom every day at the end. I was the one who knew what she ate, what hurt, and when she was pretending to feel better. When she said the ring should stay with the daughter who had been there, I thought she meant me. She may have meant you too. Susan looked up. You think she wanted us to share it? I think she wanted us to understand that love is not a race with one ring at the finish line. Susan gave a bitter smile. You always make things sound like a choir lesson. I was a choir director. You were also the one who stayed home for me. I looked away. I chose that. You did. I do not want you to feel guilty for it. I do feel guilty. Why? Because you said it was nothing. I believed you. Then I spent my whole life thinking Mom's private gratitude was mine because I was the one standing beside her at the end. I sat beside her on the step. The ring remained between us. I don't want it as payment, I said. I know. I want you to stop hiding what it says. Susan's eyes filled. You are holding the ring. I am asking you to stop hiding what it says. She closed her fingers around the band. I'm scared that if I give it to you, it will mean I was not enough. There it was, the wound beneath the argument. Susan had not taken the ring because she was greedy. She had taken it because she was afraid that the years she had spent caring for our mother would be judged against the years I had spent caring for her. You were enough, I said. She looked at me. So was I. Neither of us spoke for a while. We decided to hold a small remembrance at my house on the anniversary of our mother's death. Not a funeral. Not a formal correction. Just coffee, soup, and the people who had loved Evelyn in different ways. Susan wanted to wear the ring. I said she could. But turn it outward, I added. She looked at me. Are you sure? Yes. What if people ask? Then we tell them. What if they think I stole it? Then we tell them you took it because you believed Mom's last year was the whole story. Susan laughed through her tears. That sounds terrible. It is also accurate. On the day of the remembrance, Susan arrived early. She wore a blue dress and the ring on her right hand. The engraved side faced outward. I could see the letters from across the room. I'll each keep the song. Our aunt asked about it first. Susan looked at me before answering. Mom had it engraved for Lydia, she said. My throat tightened. She wanted Lydia to remember the music she gave up when I was sick. The room grew quiet. I expected to feel exposed. Instead, I felt something settle into its proper place. Susan continued. That does not mean Mom loved Lydia more. It means she knew Lydia had made a choice and never asked anyone to praise her for it. I looked at my sister. She was telling the truth without making herself disappear. That was new for both of us. Aunt Margaret asked whether I had really been offered a scholarship. I said yes. She asked why I had never mentioned it. I answered, because I thought a sacrifice stopped being generous if people knew about it. Susan shook her head. You thought keeping quiet made it purer. It only made it easier for all of us to forget who paid for it. The words were not cruel. They were a door opening. I reached for her hand. The ring pressed lightly against my knuckle. After the remembrance, Susan and I stayed in the kitchen to wash the cups. She removed the ring and placed it beside the sink. I could give it to you, she said. You could. Would you want me to? I looked at the blue stone. For years, I had thought wanting the ring would prove that I was still keeping score. I had thought refusing it would prove I was generous. Neither was true. I want the engraving to remain visible, I said. The ring can stay with you for now. She looked surprised. Why me? Because you wear it. Because Mom wore it. Because your hands were the ones caring for her at the end. And you. I will keep the photograph and the story. That does not feel equal. Love is not always equal in the same form. She smiled faintly. Another choir lesson. Every family needs harmony. Mom would have hated that joke. She would have pretended to. Susan picked up the ring and turned it outward before slipping it back on. We agreed that if she ever stopped wearing it, it would come back to me. Not because of the sacrifice. Because the ring had become a shared memory, and should not disappear into one person's closed hand. That agreement was not a legal document. It was a promise we could both understand. In the months after, Susan called more often. Not only when she needed something. Sometimes she called to tell me about a song Mother used to sing while sewing. Sometimes she asked whether I remembered the blue curtains from our first house. She also apologized in pieces. I should not have said Mom wanted me to have it, she told me once. No, I should have told you I knew about the engraving. Yes. I thought if I admitted it, I would lose the only thing that felt like mine. I understood that more than I wanted to. My own silence had been a way of keeping something mine. I had believed that if no one knew what I gave up, no one could reduce it to a favor they owed me. But invisible love can become invisible labor. The ring did not restore the years. It did not make Susan understand every moment of my choice, or make me understand every fear she carried while caring for our mother. It did something smaller. It gave us a sentence we could no longer avoid. Our mother had seen both daughters. She had seen Susan's final year of care. She had seen my earlier sacrifice. The ring was not a verdict about who deserved more. It was her attempt to place both truths inside one small circle of gold. I still keep the jeweler's card in my desk. The paper has faded, but the initials remain. I'll each keep the song. I sometimes wonder whether I should have told Susan about the scholarship years ago. If I had, perhaps she would not have believed the ring belonged only to her. Or perhaps we would have argued about it earlier and spent more years avoiding one another. There is no perfect version of the past waiting to be chosen. There is only the version we decide to tell honestly now. The ring is still on Susan's hand when I see her. She turns the engraving outward. Sometimes she forgets and closes her fingers around it. When I notice, I do not accuse her. I simply say, "The other side." She looks down, then turns the ring. A small motion. A repeated recognition. My mother is gone. The scholarship is gone. The years when Susan was 16 and I was 17 cannot be returned to us. But the song did not end. Oh, it changed key. If you were Lydia, would you have asked for the ring after learning the engraving was meant for you, or let Susan keep it because she cared for your mother during her final year? Should Lydia have spoken about her sacrifice sooner, or was keeping it private part of what made the choice meaningful? I would genuinely like to know, because I still believe recognition should not require one sister to lose in order for the other to be seen. If this story stayed with you, subscribe to Broken Bonds for more stories about family heirlooms, hidden truths, and the quiet work of remembering people accurately.